Hey. Hey.
This is WPwatercooler episode number 388, Securing WordPress Bots and Hackers.
Hey.
Brought to you by ServerPress, Maker's Desktop Server. They make local WordPress development easy. Check them out at serverpress.com.
Hey.
And Loft. Loft provides WordPress sites including disaster preparedness, patches, maintenance, and plugin management, content updates, and more, all for a flat fee. Check them out over at poweredbyloft.com for a free trial.
Hey. Hey, Loft. Loft. Bring it. Loft.
Oh, wow. It's really on there.
They're really, they're getting their money's worth.
And Patreon. Go to patreon.com/WPwatercooler.
If you want. I mean, you don't have to. No pressure.
Yeah. I'm Jason Tucker. I'm an IT director and WordPress web developer. You can go find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter.
Hi, I'm Steve Zingett. I do stuff with WordPress, something about the Orange County meetup. Hi, I'm Say. I do make WordPress, teach WordPress, preach WordPress, at Saving Media, at all the things. That's Cosper. He's not talking apparently either. That's his dog, though.
You can follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. We'd really appreciate if you did that.
Hey.
And one last thing, we have a Discord. Go to wpwatercooler.com/Discord, where you can join us over in the Discord and hang out with us throughout the day.
You can say hey.
I swear I know how mute buttons work.
How far like you work from home anyway. You don't even need the work from home. You've been working from home excuse. You'd learn how to use a mute button thing.
I've been working from home for 10 years. I should know how a mute button works at this point.
So we swapped Steve out today for Dan. Dan, how are you doing?
Hi, my deep-seated lack of confidence stemming from an unloved childhood is my own personal mute button. So I was just sitting back there. Yeah, exactly. No, I just like to launch into it. I just like to go all the way there and off the edge. Yeah.
Dan, who are you and what are you doing here?
I'm Dan Walmsley. I work at Automatic, and I've done a lot of different roles at Automatic, and mostly right now I do a certain amount of R&D and kind of data wrangling in the Jetpack part of the company. And
wrangling. What does wrangling mean exactly? No, just kidding.
I think it's something to do with Buffalo. I don't know, but it has been hijacked by tech nerds, just like so many other words. So
it really has.
Yeah, I'm a coder by background. I'm a programmer. So yes, I'm kind of a dog's body at Automatic at this point. I've run and launched a few different products over the years. And I was most recently involved.
What'd you call yourself? A dog's buddy?
Dog's body. I think again, word that tech people have probably stolen from somewhere else. Is
that related to dog food? Like eating your own dog food?
That's a great question. I didn't think so, but now I'm wondering.
Your dog body eats your own dog food. This is a weird analogy. We should probably stop going into it.
I just love how much we've already talked about security.
Yeah,
I mean,
these are great passwords, by the way. Great passwords.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
dog body is a good password. You haven't been on in a while, so I'm just going to remind you real quick. Half the show is not educational.
That's right.
And that's mostly the part where I'm speaking. No, just kidding. I'm very
That's what I'm here for, because I actually have almost no expertise in the subject matter. So I hope that it's mostly banter.
It's just banter,
But I will say, I did get the download from the actual experts at Automatic before coming on, so I will pretend really well to know what I'm talking about, because we do have actual security experts.
So here's the deal. Why is it broken and how are you going to fix it?
Have you tried turning it off and on?
It's always the question.
So fast with that answer.
And it's done. Here's a really fun thing. And this was not related to our topic today. I didn't mention this when we were talking about our topic, but this week I was talking to, there's that pipeline hack, ransomware, fun times.
Yeah.
Capital pipeline hack. So one of my clients is in the public works industry, and I was literally on the phone with my client, and she goes, Oh my God. We were talking about that and email security in general and phishing and all that. We were literally on the phone talking about it, and she got an email from one of her employees that said, "This email looks a little suspicious. Should I click it?" And it had gone out to the entire company, and it was from Adobe, but it was like, you know, all the words were spelled wrong or whatever. But turns out 3 employees clicked it. And yeah, it was just the irony that it was while we were on the phone talking about it.
Yeah.
So, and someone tweeted back at me because I was tweeting about it, and they were like, yeah, it's almost like, you know, security concerns haven't been a problem. Like, phishing hasn't been a problem for the last 30 years. Like, it's brand new information. Like, people can hack computers? Wait, what?
Indeed they can. There's even been movies about it.
That's crazy. Ironically, Gutenberg is such a powerful editor now that like making a phishing site has become easier than ever. Like I think I've seen some tutorials like of people being like, this is how you can make like the Chase Bank website in Gutenberg in under 5 minutes. I'm like, don't tell people that.
Oh, wow. Like, so literal, like, spoof phishing sites. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, testament to Gutenberg,
there patterns
but also
for that? There's a special pattern library for, like, load up Chase, load up Wells Fargo. It's a pre-built pattern. Don't worry about it. Just load up your hack.
So let's get
is that
into
really
it real
happening
quick.
though? No, I just want to know, is that really happening with Google?
Well, I mean, WordPress has always been, you know, like all CMSs have been used to create like fake websites that you trick people into clicking on. It's just as the CMSs get better, like including Drupal and other ones and Wix and whatever, it does make it easier and easier to make a professional looking website that you can click someone into tricking on because it doesn't have like coming soon animated GIF shovels all over it, right? Like it's like GeoCities and MySpace were limited in how much you could make a fake bank, but now it's like you can do a pretty good job. Make a fake bank. Make a fake bank and make real bank at the same time, right?
Yeah. See, we're so lucky that so many security people use their powers for good. Because
So
there's a whole lot of people who use their powers for evil.
Where should we start off on this topic? We're 7 minutes in.
Why are you so time focused today? Like,
because there's only 30 of them.
We got topics to do.
There's only 30 of them.
Well,
Dan, what did you hear so far from your folks when you went and posed this question?
Well, yeah. So actually one of the most interesting things is sort of like to me is like how has the WordPress security picture kind of changed over time? Because like I think a lot of people are used to thinking about it in terms of like I don't know, like people hacking individual sites like back in the day, or you know, like a malicious plugin or something like that. And like what people are seeing increasingly now is like, you know, automated attacks that are basically like you have some machine like running on the Amazon cloud, right? Or the hacker does, that's just basically firing off attacks at like every single known WordPress site. So like
thanks, Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, right. Like, well, because here's the
Hacks
thing. Like,
brought to you by Jeff Bezos.
You can do so. Like, there's so much parallel computing capacity now that it really does make this viable to sort of like test a particular 0-day exploit on 1 million websites in a minute, right? Like, and so that's becoming like increasingly prevalent, and that's one of the things that like really worries people because like, you know, you start to see more and more hacks like happening on your site because like all these different hackers are automating them and trying every single different test. And not only, you know, is that worrying as an end user, like you see all the alarm bells going red and stuff, but it's also like it's stressing your site out, right? Like it could almost be a DDoS at some point, right? If you've got people trying out all these different passwords or trying out different length strings with different encodings and stuff like that, that's like stressing your website out. So that's a thing that's kind of changed.
Have you heard of Eric Jones?
No.
Oh, it's just I was on some forum somewhere, and I keep getting spam on one of these sites that I haven't locked down properly, and on a contact form, and like it's always from Eric Jones, and everyone was like talking about how the spam is going out like through WordPress contact sites from this guy. Like, I mean, obviously it's not a guy, but like they keep using the same names. It's so interesting. I was like, oh, okay, I got that spam too. Now I feel like I'm in the group. It's cool. So wait, I have a question. I don't know how many years ago. Time is weird, but a while back there was a really big there was a big botnet and there was more of a concern about WordPress sites, especially old WordPress sites, being strung together to make botnets. Is that still something that is I haven't really heard about a lot of this. So is that something that's still a concern, or is that concern lessened to a degree?
I haven't seen, we didn't actually touch on that in my discussions with the Jetpack Scan team, but I have to imagine that it's a possibility. Like you do see, so there's a particular class of attacks that are basically where you can upload what's called a web shell. So it's like if there's a plugin that like a media library kind of thing or whatever that like writes to the file system, and you can, as an end user, like as a non-admin, right, you can sort of trick it into uploading a file, and then sometimes you can use that file to create like what's known as a web shell. So it's like it is able to take HTTP requests and like run them locally like a shell, so you can run commands and kind of enumerate the file system, do all kinds of stuff. And like once you've got a web shell and you can kind of get in and create like to an actual terminal, on the system. So for end users, like this is that black and white thing, like where you can type commands and the computer runs them, right? As opposed to WordPress, the front end. Once you can do that, like all bets are off. You can make it part of a botnet. You can make it part of you can just, the most malicious thing is you make it part of a botnet, but you don't do anything for a long time, so the person doesn't know like their computer's been hijacked. And then at the right time and then at the right time you hold someone to ransom and say, I've got 100,000 computers pointing their network connections at you, and I can take you off the internet because I've hijacked all these computers and made them part of my zombie army.
Wow, people have way too much time on their hands.
Well, and here's the thing.
It's also very profitable, obviously.
It's very profitable, right? Like we used to see a lot of like link farming back in the day where like you could like post comments pointing back to you. This is why we ended up with rel equals nofollow and stuff, right? Like people were posting like comment spam pointing back to their site, and Google sees that as a ranking signal, and you get on the front page. So then we started to see like WooCommerce and these other, and Magento and things, making it easier to do commerce online. And then there's still link spam, but now there's a lot of credit card spam, right? Because you can take these fake credit cards and really buy stuff with it. And then we're seeing like really crazy things now where people are like creating fake reseller pages that sell real products and harvest the reseller. So they'll take somebody else's Amazon reseller page where they've written a review of like a Sonos or whatever, and they like scrape that, replace the reseller IDs, and run it on their own site. Now, is that a hack, right? Or is that
just an arsehole? Right.
Are you just a butthead, right? But it is like the thing they have in common is it's all about money, right? And ultimately, that's going to be a good guide to the kind of hacks we'll see in the future. Like, if you can start paying for things with Bitcoin, what new hacks does that create, right? And so on.
So many. Last summer, I had a kind of like a pro bono client, not kind of like a pro bono client. A pro bono client had someone else for him had set up a Stripe, like kind of buy button for Stripe specifically that interacted with Stripe, and it basically someone hacked it. I don't even know how this happened, but they paid for with fake credit cards. They bought a $5 a digital thing or whatever, so nothing was being shipped or anything, but the account received, I think it was like $80,000 of $5 transactions. Like it was like 8,000 transactions, something like that, and it all went through Stripe. And then because the way Stripe works, it like automatically puts the money in the bank account. Like it was just like, whoa, why is all this money here? And so we had to refund all of that, and then all of those credit cards, had to get refunded. It was a total nightmare, and I'm not even sure how they spoofed that. Obviously, there could have been some sort of hole in that plugin, the Stripe. I'll get the name for the notes or for the show notes, but. I don't know. I still never figured out if it was that plugin that they were going directly to Stripe, or was it like because there were no transactions on the site itself. Like it was all in some weird middle space. Like where is that even happening? Like I don't even know. But it was a product that was on the site. But it was just like weirdly, I don't even know, how would one even protect against that? Like obviously the plugin is probably where that gap was.
Yeah.
Cosper. But what's your do you have any like recommendations, or does, not shameless plug time or anything, but is that something that Jetpack Scan would even notice if it's happening on the way out of the website?
Well, it's a really interesting. So we have Jetpack Scan, and we also have a Kismet, right? And the two are actually increasingly kind of closely related, because at some point you're not just looking for like known kind of things that you've seen before, but you're looking for like signals of like unusual behavior, right? That you can then investigate and like turn into a signature. So like in the Jetpack Scan team, like one thing we're getting better and better at, like actually really quickly, is this sort of feedback loop between like, how do we spot weirdness and identify weirdness? Like, how do we turn that
right here?
Right?
Here.
There it is. It's blue spectacles.
Weirdness.
There's floating colorful bubbles.
Some floating
That's
thing.
weirdness. Yeah. Or you're floating above a planet. No. So
Also
how do you spot weirdness? New kinds of weirdness, existing kinds of weirdness. How do you turn that really as sufficiently as you can into a signature that, like, and when I say signature, it's like
something
this
you can recognize.
Right, exactly. And it's like you want it to be specific enough that it always catches this particular kind of hack or this particular kind of spam or whatever it is, but like but doesn't catch stuff that's not spam, right? And so that's it's an art form. Like it's very hard right now to take humans out of the loop on that. But what you can do is have systems that look for anomalies and like prioritize those and put them in front of like security experts who can then say, oh yeah, okay, I can see that this is malicious or non-malicious. One interesting thing is like obfuscated code. So what a lot of hacks do is like they'll kind of like rewrite the PHP in a different way for every website, so that's really hard to write a signature. And so one thing we've started doing is trying to like de-obfuscate that code and then change all the variable names to like sequential numbers or whatever, and like put it in an abstract syntax tree and basically say, not do these pieces of code look the same, but do they do the same thing, right? Because the hackers are always
like pattern recognition, right?
Like, yeah.
Or like not pattern recognition in the code, but pattern recognition in the what the code does, like you're saying. So like, that's interesting. So there are patterns in hacking.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is if you're in the Magento space and you see obfuscated code, like Magento has so many like closed source plugins that like it's very common for a vendor to obfuscate their PHP so that like, their competitors can't take it because it's proprietary. What's really cool about WordPress is if you see obfuscated code that's like come down but is in a plugin that came from the .org directory, you can be moderately sure that that's a problem, right? Like, because
it's not permitted.
Because like it's not permitted in the .org repo, right? Like, and obviously there are commercial plugins you can download for WordPress, but it's a lot less common. So it's an interesting signal. And then like we do have like all sorts of ongoing issues with like order spam and stuff in like WooCommerce, and it's somewhere between spam and a hack because it's like someone's getting stuff for free, so it's a hack, and like maybe they're exploiting credit card stuff, but then it's also spam because like it's in the form of an order, it's got content in there and like addresses in there that maybe you can see patterns in those and say like this is fake. So we're really lucky to have all these different signals, and the final really great signal is we provide so many different features. Like we provide search indexing for your content over here, and we provide like monitoring, like uptime monitoring over there, that like we can combine, like compared to say like other security plugins that either like aren't WordPress specific or just are kind of narrowly just a WordPress plugin, we can take a lot more signals to look for these like anomalies, and that gives us a better chance of catching them and putting them in front of these experts and turning them into signatures and much more quickly, right? And that's
how often do you think the sorry, did you want to finish?
No, it's okay. And I will say it's because so many hacks now are automated, like it is a speed thing, right? Like you do want to get these signatures made quickly, and you want to have a production line of that, and so prioritizing anomalies is really important.
So just that's the same what I was going to follow up on. How often, since you are not that Jetpack is the only solution to this, but since we have you here, how often does that get updated? For I'm assuming every day you're recognizing more patterns. You're pulling in so much data, but how often does that get crunched and pushed back out? Where is it just every day? There's here's 10 more flags that we've added to this, or is that just thousands? What is that?
So we have a bunch of different processes, and some are more real time, support requests from someone saying my website's been hacked, right? And you need to respond in real time. You need to figure out what the vector was in real time. But then some deeper stuff, what we've actually started doing is taking all of the information we have about exploits, and we had it all in sort of these MySQL tables, right? Like a lot of stuff at Automatic, where all the signatures and all the times things have been hacked and all the times that they've been corrected, are in a big MySQL table. Now we've started loading this into Hadoop and doing big data kind of analytics on it. So there's this separate batch process where it's it's fun for me.
Yeah, I was ooh, a data analysis.
I don't know. Ooh, tell me more.
I literally did that. It literally was tell me more.
So what's really cool about that, and it's more heavyweight, so you kind of have to do it in chunks, right? Where we what we call scoop data into Hadoop, which is a big data system where you can operate on lots of data from lots of machines in parallel. And then from there, you sort of create reports that are okay, how fast are we catching stuff versus how fast it's being reported? How effective are these signatures? There's this thing in statistics precision versus recall. How many false positives, how many false negatives? And then surfacing that and just kind of that lets us continuously iterate on the whole system, as opposed to just being reactive and not having this bigger picture of how we're doing. So so it's really exciting. I mean, it's we constantly have to kind of make these things better. There isn't some established system that you can just put in stone and never change, because
the internet's not static.
Well, it's this thing I said before about how so many attacks now are automated that it's the time between an exploit being created, say an insecure plugin comes out, right? The time between an accidentally insecure plugin coming out and that being on lots of sites and then that being exploited at scale is getting shorter and shorter. So actually, and I will say to people, keep your plugins up to date, because keep your WordPress up to date, keep your plugins up to date. If you do nothing else, that's a great way to avoid security issues, because they often come in the form of a point release, and you want to get those point releases really quickly. And that's why it's a great thing that WordPress put in auto updates for security releases. I mean, it's huge, right? But that's the floor, and then from there, you can start to do better and better.
Right. So how often is the Jetpack Scan database of bad things? Let's call it that. How often is that? Is it? I'm assuming that's kind of more real time. That's not just updated when you update the software, right? That's because it's pulling from some sort of external database that's being updated all the time. So is it just constantly just getting stuff where it's starting to flag things on an ongoing basis?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're really fortunate in that, as well as having the security plugin, we host a lot of we have this Atomic and Pressable and these other sort of small hosting sort of things that live under Automatic. So we get a constant stream of information about because the systems teams are obviously trying to keep those sites all working all the time, and so. And people will go in, and obviously there'll be manual fixes for things that have happened even before we've got we call a fixer for it. But we are in the process of actually making that even more real time and fixing some of those things automatically. It's it's a little tricky fixing things automatically, because you have to have so much confidence that it's an actual hack, and you have to have so much confidence that the fix isn't going to break the site, and that thing is just really tricky to get to, but we're getting closer and closer and closer to that, because we host a lot of WordPress sites ourselves. And then, as those things we get more confidence in them, we can roll that into the plugin for other hosts. So things will get more real time. I mean, right now there's this process of we get a lot of data about what's going on sites, but we don't always turn that into direct actions straight away, right? Like it has to go through a review process. It has to go through, because not everything we see is what we think it is unless you look closely. Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
I want another thing I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to allow Cosper and or Jason to say something if they want.
We get the last 5 minutes, Cosper. I'm stoked.
No. Only the next two. Only the next two. Because I feel
The next son of a...
Don't get crazy, okay? Like I wasn't like giving up all of my airtime. What?
No. So actually, just within which release was it? I'm a little shaky on it. It's been a weird year, but they've also had plugin auto updates available and theme auto updates available. That is something that I know a few people are shaky on enabling on their sites, especially when they have something big like WooCommerce running that they can't necessarily, they need to make sure their extensions and everything else are working with the new version of WooCommerce before they update it. But fortunately, because that is built in to WordPress now, you can at a plugin level say, hey, upgrade these like handful of plugins that I know aren't going to break the site. And then I do that on most of my sites now. And then have a tool like I use iTheme Sync in the background, just to like, okay, now, you know, I mean, you could use Manage WP or whatever else to have like, here's a centralized dashboard where if I have a handful of other sites, I can make sure that those plugin updates are rolled out, like, and control the ones that I need to control, but everything else.
Yeah, because it's like it's the little plugins that I think are the bigger risk, right? Because it's like WooCommerce has literally a team of people like making sure that it's not breaking and making sure that it's secure. So if there's a real problem in WooCommerce, like there's people on it, as opposed to, you know, maybe one of these, you know, a couple small plugins that has like one person who, you know, checks back on it every couple months, and you know that is more ripe for exploitation than something like WooCommerce, which is basically like attacking a castle instead of like a shack. Yeah, I mean, the real. Sorry,
I was going to say it's rarely WooCommerce. It's a WooCommerce extension that you need to make sure is like lined up before. Proceed.
I was just going to say like that there's usually the less frequently updated plugins are less popular. The really dangerous thing is when you have an unmaintained plugin that's really popular, because that increases the incentive for someone to exploit it, right? There's more sites running this sort of popular thing. So, it's like
especially if it's like a form plugin or something that has part of its, you know, use like actual data entry or something like that. Like it's built to transmit data, and so it's so much more easily exploitable. You don't even have to poke a hole in it. There's already a hole.
Yeah, and actually, here's a really nefarious thing that I learned today, is some exploits are just from a combination of two plugins. So like either plugin by themselves doesn't have a vulnerability, but when you install two plugins together, then like you can exploit the file system rights from one with the unescaped user input from the other and get something. And so, so
I have not heard of that.
That's where people are getting really sophisticated and like, but you know, I mean, our team is sort of always trying to kind of obviously stay 2 steps ahead, like every security company team. But those are some of the things they've been seeing.
That right there is a Dev Branch episode in itself.
Yeah,
like Dan, whoever you got to get, whoever you got to get in to talk about that. I think that right there is one of those topics that you don't really think about, because of the fact that if you're building just one plugin and then someone else is building that you know plugin that's going to help with that type of exploitation, you're not thinking about that. You may test
and you're not coordinating
50 different plugins to make sure that they don't like break or anything, and that there's like, you know, correct namespace.
What does that data look like? Like, is that a spreadsheet that the hackers have where they're like, on most websites, if you have contact form 7, you also have, you know, this other shoddy plugin set up, and then let's pull these together. Like, how do you, like, that's a really interesting approach. Like, That's very creative. It's a creative hack.
So say there are tools like WP Scan that will check for a particular plugin stack, or you can set.
Well, I know, but you're not going to just like pick one site and be like, well, those two work together. You want two plugins that are often installed on the same site, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a whole person. That's like marketing profiling of people level. Like they're like, what type of person with their cat blog installs both this plugin, and like. That's just, like I said, that's really creative. I'm almost impressed. That's weird, right?
Well, and this is why one of the things, again, as well as keeping your plugins up to date, have the minimum number of plugins that you need, right? Like don't go like we've seen a lot of like we just released a great performance plugin and like we see all the bad interactions where people have got 4 other performance plugins and then they install Jetpack Boost on top, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like you don't need all those plugins. Right. Often, if you install more than one plugin that does the same thing, you're kind of asking for trouble. And if you install more plugins than you need, right, you're obviously exposing yourself to more different kinds of attacks. So, like minimizing the number of plugins, focusing on high quality, frequently updated plugins, and like having one security solution on top, I think is probably good advice to people.
Yeah. Well, this is part.
I was going to just one last thing. Multiple plugins, multiple performance plugins is like adding basically a second spoiler on top of your spoiler on your Honda.
You guys, I saw a truck with a spoiler on top of it 2 days ago. What was that? It was amazing.
Yeah. If 4 wheels are fast, 12 wheels must be really fast.
Right, exactly.
Simple math.
This is like a first of a series that we're trying to do here on security. We're going back and we've talked about this stuff. We've been doing this for like 8 years now. Like there's so much stuff. Yeah, there's so much stuff that we've talked about. We're kind of going back to the basics and going like, okay, what should we be doing here?
Like where is it at now? Like this stuff changes.
Oh yeah, we're not worried about like changing your admin username from admin to something else. Like there's more to it than just that. So yeah.
Although I have a WordPress site that keeps sending me notices that someone is being flooded with the intention, like the admin as the potential username. So
the worst.
That's still a thing.
So yeah, we're going to be discussing more of this next week, and for I think for at least for the next couple of weeks here, we're going to be talking about security type stuff. So Dan, thank you very much for coming and hanging out with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is so fun.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure to not have Steve on for one episode. Like I just talked his ear off. He's just crazy. So yeah.
Thanks for the banter.
Thank you very much. Yes, definitely. Thank you very much for that. And you guys have a good rest of your day. Here's our outro. Thanks.
Hey.
Go over to WPwatercooler.com/subscribe, where you can learn to subscribe to this content and all the other content that we have on our network. If you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can do that as well. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and if you want to watch us, we're on YouTube. Talk to y'all later.